Talking about a media shakeup. Wow, this could be pretty wild, could it not? I think some people would be upset, just to say the least.
People are rightfully alarmed. They have a reason to be alarmed.
We could all be fired a year from now. Whenever this happens, you never know what's going to happen.
You got to go because nobody can figure out what's being said here right now.
So if you think that you can vote for what people see as their destruction and then demand that they still are cool with you and kiki with you and have Thanksgiving with you, like, I think you're kind of missing the point.
Oh, you might be able to say bye to her sooner than you thought. Elon Musk coming out with some very provocative tweets, very reminiscent of what he did with Twitter back in 2022. Wow. Elon Musk potentially maybe buying the spinco that NBC wants to get rid of. Could he perhaps think of a way to actually do something more than Comcast has been able to do with the company? We're going to talk all about it because this is some major news, you guys. This is actually really, really fascinating. Elon Musk tweeting out just literally minutes ago that, there may be some there, if you would, when it comes to MSNBC. MSNBC, of course, has been struggling. Terrible ratings, down 51% since the election. And NBC just the other day came out and said, you know what? We're going to spin them off. We're going to spin off MSNBC, CNBC, Oxygen, that's Oprah's Oxygen, Sci-Fi, the whole kit and caboodle of cable properties outside of Bravo. Bravo they're going to keep. They're going to keep streaming Peacock, and they're going to keep the network itself. But the rest of the stuff they want separated from the main company. And shareholder value, therefore, theoretically would increase because these companies aren't making a ton of money and they've been kind of a drag on earnings. And, let's face it, they're not really fun to own, shall we say, right now. Like 12 years ago when they got them, they were much, much more exciting and much, much more profitable. But with ratings where they are, profitability margins where they are, Comcast not being really a content company, everybody's coming up to the realization that maybe this makes sense to separate these things. And hence, you have the opportunity for Spinco to come out onto the surface. So the idea being that it would trade separately, that shareholders, there's like a tax advantage here to these things, shareholders would get a share in the new company. A new company that, I don't know, I guess would trade somewhere maybe around the $7 billion range, which would make it a bargain, right? For someone like Elon Musk, especially considering he paid $42 billion for Twitter. So Don Jr. brought this up today. I want to share with you after somebody said, okay, Comcast is putting MSNBC up for sale. CNN just announced massive layoffs coming. Maybe the new owners will figure out that lying nonstop to your audience is a lousy business model. And Don Jr. tweeted out, hey, Elon Musk, I have the funniest idea ever. And so this was out there. And then what do you know? He wrote back, how much does it cost? So again, kind of reminiscent of the day when he came out and said, yeah, I love Twitter, when people were talking about whether or not he would buy it. He said exactly that. How much is it? And of course, the rest is history because he went forward. He bought Twitter for an insane valuation. At one point he wanted to kind of back out of it or get a better deal. And he couldn't because he had agreed to pay $42 billion. I told you that deal would go through. The Delaware court wasn't going to budge on that. And sure enough, it did. So could he do something here? Again, I'll tell you this, Elon is committed to free speech. That's in part what Twitter is about. He's frustrated at what the media has become. And we do need to kind of rethink the media. Do we not, ladies and gentlemen? We're rethinking it right here every single day, which is why I remind you, please subscribe, share, like, comment, all that good stuff. Here we go.
Free speech is the bedrock of democracy. And if people don't know what's going on, if they don't know the truth, how can you make an informed vote? You must have free speech in order to have democracy. That's why it's the First Amendment. And the Second Amendment is there to ensure that we have the First Amendment.
There he was on the Trump rally tour with Donald Trump. And of course, he hasn't really left his side since the president-elect became president-elect. And he's working on Doge, with Vivek Ramaswamy to kind of take a nice red sharp pen to the budget of the U.S. government. And so I think that part of what his frustration is, I know part of his frustration has been in how the mainstream media has just fed you a whole bunch of lies, and you're not really, as an American, able to decipher the truth because they're not presenting both sides. And his idea was free speech should really and truly be free speech, even when the libs don't like it, right?
Elon Musk bought X and turned it into the social media arm of the MAGA movement. And we all sat there right in the middle of it during the campaign, possibly not realizing that we're sitting there like fat chickens, just getting attacked all day and just being part of this MAGA messaging. However, the election's over. Everybody's getting smarter and better. I'm not sure that the right idea is to leave Twitter and just go to Blue Sky, a friendlier place, because then we remain in our echo chambers. I don't think that you should necessarily stay in Twitter every day and battle it out and let yourself doom scroll of all the hate coming at you. But I want to see it. I want to read what's happening there, right? And so I think at least staying in those spaces is important because I want to hear the other things.
Eddie,
Yeah, and she wants to keep a job, I guess, if Elon were to buy MSNBC. No, in all seriousness, though, she's right. In other words, you can't just put your hands over your ears and close out the other side. You have to be willing to listen, even when you don't like it, right? And this is something that a lot of people on the left fundamentally just don't get. In fact, I'd say that the people over at MSNBC fundamentally do not get this. I mean, why else do you have the likes of Joy Reid saying things like,
People are rightfully alarmed. They have a reason to be alarmed.
oh, and it gets worse. I'm going to show you more because she's doubling down on how you don't need to be with the people that voted for Trump over Thanksgiving because it's too hurtful what they did. You see what I'm saying? People that are just covering their ears because they want to tune out the other side. They think they can cut off relations with the other side. And there's Elon Musk saying, no. You guys tried that. You tried that at Twitter. I mean, heck, you took the U.S. president right off of Twitter and left the Ayatollah on. Okay, so go figure. You can't just shut out your political enemies and the other side. And so he kind of did the world a favor by paying, what was it, $54.20 a share, $44 billion for Twitter, which was a really, really hefty price tag. The board had no choice but to approve that deal. So let's walk through this scenario, shall we? I mean, if he were to say, okay, I really want MSNBC, I want CNBC, I want Oxygen, I want Sci-Fi, I want all these cable properties that Comcast doesn't know what to do with, and I'm going to take them and make them into something. Maybe if I'm Fox, I'm nervous about this, right? I'm very, very nervous because it would be like the anti-establishment conservative media. Yikes. So there's a lot that maybe he could do with it. He'd have to think about how he sort of breaks up some of these deals he has already, maybe with cable companies, because they get paid by the cable companies to be in their homes, but simultaneously they can't do as much on the podcast front or the streaming front or any of those things. So you'd have to completely rethink the business. I do think that this guy could do it. So then let's just, let's humor him for a second here and humor Don Jr. and think about what this would look like. In terms of valuation, I don't know. I mean, we'd have to dig through those numbers. I made something up at the top of my head and was saying maybe around $7 billion, which would be a fraction, right, of the $44 billion that he paid for Twitter. But would it actually go through? So first of all, NBC has made a decision to spin this off in SpinCo, and there's tax advantages to doing that. So they'd have to say, okay, well, you got to make me whole, and we got to be whole on the tax front, etc. If Elon says, okay, I'll do that, does he go to Comcast and say, hey, here you go, and offer them some valuation that would probably be a premium? The board would have to entertain that. I mean, in other words, they can't say, well, we don't like you because you're Elon Musk. I mean, Twitter didn't really like him very much. Twitter was devastated that he was coming in the door, and yet ultimately they had to do that deal because their duty is to maximize shareholder value. And if Elon paying a big premium for Twitter or maybe for this SpinCo, MSNBC and co, then guess what? The board would have to okay that. They'd have to entertain it. They'd have to listen to it. They have a legal obligation to do so. And then, you know, what happens next is anybody's guess, right? I mean, that would be very, very entertaining. If nothing else, you know, he gets that. He gets that. He knows that this is entertaining. Perhaps he wants to feed that narrative. But I go back to the original tweet, right? Where he was talking about how much is it? I love Twitter. And then what do you know? The next thing he did was he bought it. I'll tell you, some people already, regardless of whether Elon comes through and buys this thing or not, they're already nervous about their jobs over at MSNBC. They're very, very nervous because, you know, you're looking at pay cuts, you're looking at lower ratings, and they know the handwriting is on the wall. In other words, they may not be guaranteed those big fat salaries for long. Joe and Mika admitted as much.
We could all be fired a year from now whenever this happens. You never know what's going to happen.
I will say this. They're smarter than some of the other people over there on MSNBC. They're very shrewd. I give Joe that. You know, the next day, right after the election, there he was on set talking about, wow, you know, this is amazing. This was such a landslide by the Republican Party. I haven't seen anything like this since Reagan. And suddenly he was in his little suit and tie, and he talked about being a white, Southern, male, conservative. It's like, wow, the handwriting was on the wall. Joe got the message, and he was back on cue. And it just tells you kind of how phony he is, right? Right? But it also tells you he's a politician and he gets it. He knew, he likely knew, well, he had to know. I mean, we were reporting that as much here. I told you, this company's going to get sold. And then NBC admitted it on October 31st. When they released their earnings, they said, you know what, we're looking at this potential spin-off company. And there are some people that are really, really unhappy about this. I mean, think about people like Joy Reid that just doubled down on this hate during the campaign. And now it gets to live another day. She's actually continuing to spiral out of control.
People are rightfully alarmed. They have a reason to be alarmed.
Unbelievable.
People are rightfully alarmed. They have a reason to be alarmed. And if you would vote for that, people may not feel so confident that they're safe with you. This is not crazy. This is legitimate feelings of fear of you and a feeling that you might not be someone they could trust. If this thing goes way south, autocracies go south real fast and things get ugly and people get asked to do things and turn people in and point people out and turn on them. And if you're voting affirmatively, gleefully for this, and people might, I don't know, may not feel so confident in you anymore. That's real, and you kind of have to live with it. So if you think that you can vote for what people see as their destruction and then demand that they still are cool with you and kiki with you and have Thanksgiving with you, like, I think you're kind of missing the point of what people are upset about. They're afraid. And autocracy and fascism are things that are legitimate to be afraid of. So you may want to step back.
Okay, so like, who's the fascist here? I would just ask, who is the fascist? Joy Reid, I mean, it's frankly kind of gross, the way she behaves, the things that she says, and the division that she's continuing to stir up. It's reckless, it's dangerous, it's wrong. So she wants to shut out one side. She wants to disown an entire side, and she said she's absolutely right to do it. Okay, honey, you know, you do your little thing, but did you see the maps? All the red and the little teeny little crystals. We're going to call them crystals because you guys think you're so important. The little snowflakes of blue all around the country. The train has left the station. Americans heard you. They heard you on TV every single day. And you know what? They were kind of nauseated by it. At some point, it went in one ear and out the other because they were sick of hearing it. Because you know what, guys? When people are getting killed, which is the reality of where we are right now because of defund the police and open borders and this, that, and the other. And when they're getting killed at the grocery store because, wow, everything has gone up in price. One MSNBC anchor said the smartest thing I've ever heard him say the other day. Brian Williams, who used to anchor the big flagship program, was on some show, and he's like, do you know it's $40 for Bounty for a 12-pack of paper towels? It's $40. Like, people are hurting. This is the reason No one wants y'all. You're so obsessed with the DEI and everybody's feelings and this and that and the other. And in the meantime, we got rampant inflation and we've got crime and we've got kids that are afraid to speak. Joe Scarborough admitted this, smart man, the very next day on set, just days ahead of, hours ahead of hearing the news that MSNBC is going to be spun off. MSNBC, CNBC, Sci-Fi, Oprah's, Oxygen, E, the Golf Channel, USA. Hey, you know what, Elon, I'm seeing a deal here for you. I'm seeing a deal. And hey, you know, you can get some pay cuts along the way too. Rachel Maddow, it has been revealed, has just agreed to a pay cut. She only does one show a week, for goodness sakes. She's going to make 25 instead of 30 million. Oh, we're really feeling sorry for her. You know what? These are the people that don't have to worry about the $40 12-pack of paper towels. They're just living in a whole different world. And they are so divorced from the realities that really matter that I tell you, this is partly, if not entirely, why the Democrats completely failed with America. So the company's up for sale. Elon might buy it. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm telling you, I would not be surprised. I tend to be right on these things, so let's watch it. But Mika and Joe, they're very aware that this is going to be problematic, right, for them and for their jobs. One, because they make a lot of money, and two, because their ratings are lousy, and three, because whoever's coming in as the new owner doesn't want to deal. The new shareholders, the board, they are not going to want to have to deal with the headaches that Mika and Joe and Joy and the rest of them are bringing on. You got Brendan Carr from the FCC. He means business. He's like, I'm sick of this. He looked at the number 2 mandate for the FCC, which happened to be diversity, equity, inclusion. And he's like, enough, get rid of it. I don't care about that. Maybe we just need some truth in the media. Do we not, ladies and gentlemen? So here's Mika talking about her little expedition that she went on.
Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years.
That must have been hard, huh? I mean, especially considering what Joey thought of the president.
And being so pragmatic and trying to be like, I'm okay, you're okay. Now, where can we meet in the middle? La, la, la. On this question, we're past that. You can't meet. If they voted for Trump in 16, whatever. They voted for Trump in 20, they knew exactly what they were doing. If they vote for Donald Trump in 2024, and I've said it on my show, I'll say it here, they're knowingly voting for a fascist. They're voting for a racist. They're voting for somebody that wants to put this country 200 years in the back. And so I'm not trying to figure them out. I'm trying to figure out how we get people out who love democracy, who love freedom, who love the rights of all Americans, how to get them to the voting booth. Because that's how we save our country.
Didn't work out so well for you, huh, Joe? No. So it was like days before the election. Amazing how he has such a change of heart to the point where he'd go into Mar-a-Lago, into the lion's den, after saying all the things he said, and after Donald Trump calling him one sick puppy. Remember that on Fox?
About Joe Scarborough, because on Bill Maher's show, he said, his people, meaning your people, have said they're going to arrest my producers.
Oh, nobody said that. Look, Joe's a sick puppy. I know him well. I used him beautifully. I dropped him because I thought he was very unethical, actually. But I dropped him. But I used him for 2016, and I do it from my apartment. I wouldn't even have to go in. I'd do phone calls, and I did them almost sometimes on a daily basis.
Why do you say that?
And then everyone said, because I watch him and what he says about me. What he says is so bad. And you have to understand, now I was friendly with him and with Mika, but at a certain point, and it doesn't matter why, but I didn't want to do it anymore with them. And they're not too happy about it. No, but he says a lot of things like that I think they're unethical, but who knows?
I want to drill down on this question.
Yeah. You know, I mean, you just heard some of them, and he sent them on the air. And there were things like, I don't know, we played some of these on my shorts feed where he was swearing on the air at 6:15 in the morning, all about Donald Trump. I mean, the anger was just coming right through the screen. Did they think that worked? Is that what sells paper, so to speak, or turns the dial? I don't know. I don't think they were doing that well to begin with. I think they were getting crushed by their competitors, including Fox. I know Newsmax has been soaring, and they were getting crushed by, folks like me over here in this new media space where we can say what we want and we don't have to worry about this, that, and the other all the time. I'm surprised they weren't worried, though. I mean, the way they spoke, it was so bizarre, and it was conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory. It still is, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, just go back to Joy, right? And Joy's idea that somehow we need to divide. It gets worse. I got more to show you because she's got another clip that I am convinced is going to get her fired. Like before Elon comes in, before the spinoff happens, Joy Reid is angling. She is itching to get fired, given some of the crazy things she is saying. More on that in a second. But first, so Joe and Mika, they decide to go over to Mar-a-Lago. And, some people aren't taking it so well, but listen to their explanation.
Over the past week, Joe and I have heard from so many people, from political leaders to regular citizens, deeply dismayed by several of President-elect Trump's cabinet selections, and they are scared. Last Thursday, we expressed our own concerns on this broadcast and even said we would appreciate the opportunity to speak with the president-elect himself. On Friday, we were given the opportunity to do just that. Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years.
Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion, mass deportation, threats of political retribution against political opponents, and media outlets. We talked about that a good bit. And it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show, has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so.
What we did agree on was to restart communications. My father often spoke with world leaders with whom he and the United States profoundly disagreed. That's a task shared by reporters and commentators alike. We had not spoken to President Trump since March of 2020, other than a personal call Joe made to Trump on the morning after the attempt on his life in Butler, Pennsylvania. In this meeting, President Trump was cheerful, he was upbeat, he seemed interested in finding common ground with Democrats on some of the most divisive issues. And for those asking why we would go speak to the president-elect during such fraught times, especially between us, I guess I would ask back, why wouldn't we? Yeah. 5 years of political warfare has deeply divided Washington and the country. We have been as clear as we know how in expressing our deep concerns about President Trump's actions and words in the coarsening of public debate. But for nearly 80 million Americans, election denialism, public trials, and January 6th were not as important as the issues that moved them to send Donald Trump back to the White House with their vote. Joe and I realize it's time to do something different. And that starts with not only talking about Donald Trump, but also talking with him.
It's like she's Secretary of State or something, right? I mean, she thinks she's negotiating with North Korea. Honestly, I would just say, look, fine. You should be talking with him. You should be talking with your friends and your enemies and everybody in between. There's nothing wrong with that. More information is better. Right? This is why when everybody freaked out about, oh my gosh, Tucker Carlson is going to talk to Vladimir Putin. And I said, of course he should. Everyone should want to hear from everyone, right? We don't just wall it off because, oh, they're the enemy. If anything, you'll want to know even more about what the enemy's thinking, for goodness sake. So I don't disagree with her on that. What I do disagree with is what they have done for the last 8 years, and certainly the last 3 years. It's been literally disgusting, but that's how they've brought all these people in. And so what do you know? They came out with this statement, and the ratings, being as weak as they already are, they tanked in real time. Normally in morning TV, you add as you go through the morning. But in this particular case, people heard that and they literally changed the channel. People like, oh, this little lady, one Rosie O'Donnell.
Hold, please. So Mika and Joe went down to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. It's the last time I ever watched Morning Joe. Period. End of statement. Unreal. Unreal. For months you were telling us he's the worst thing that could happen to this country and democracy. And then you go kiss his ring? Despicable.
Despicable.
Despicable you. Both of you.
Oh, she's got some good drama going on there too, doesn't she? Despicable. It makes me think of Despicable Me, because I have kids and they love that series. Anyway, she wasn't the only one. Sunny Hostin over on The View, which is going to get canceled too. We get more on that coming up. She's torching them as well.
Look, the bottom line is that America needs a free press that is willing to speak truth to power right now, more than ever. And I think that we have to be very clear-eyed when we think about the president-elect and cover the president-elect. And I don't think you need to sit down for 90 minutes at Mar-a-Lago and kiss his ring to be able to speak truth and to be able to cover a story. So maybe they're not journalists in the true sense. Maybe they're saying that they're opinion journalists. But we have to remember that Trump is the guy who ushered in the era of fake news. He is the guy who ushered in alternative facts. He is the guy who attacked 3 black female journalists. He's the guy that revoked Jim Acosta's press credentials for asking him a question. And so I think that this president-elect, I hate to say it, would like nothing more than to have only Fox News cover him, would like nothing more than a state-sponsored media. And I don't think he can be trusted in the way that other presidents can be trusted. This is an
I'm amazed at how they get up on their high horse. So now she's trying to put herself in a different position than the MSNBC folks. Let's be very clear. They are all opinion makers. They are all commentators. And when you think about what they sat there and told us for however many years, that wasn't journalism. That wasn't even, frankly, commentating. I mean, that was extremism. And Sunny is a part of that extremism as well. And so for her to sit there and be like, oh, they're not journalists. I am. Sorry. You're definitely not, for goodness sakes. Own what you are. I own what I am. I am an opinion maker. I am a journalist. By the way, I've had way more training in actual journalism than any of those people on The View. And I know how journalism works from the inside and out. And I know how networks work. And I know the built-in bias that is there. And it's one of the most terrific things, frankly, about being over here. It's what I love. It's one of the reasons I created, by the way, 76 Research. I think Rob's going to come on the show in a little bit, a little later in the program to talk some more about the Twitter deal that's just amazing. But we do have an Invest in MAGA guide that we just put out. It's totally free. Go to 76research.com. Invest in MAGA, because there's going to be a lot of opportunity. I want you guys to be part of that. I've been saying that all along. I mean, look, I always believe in the American economy and the opportunity it represents, but I was getting worried. At the idea of Kamala. I mean, the laugh alone, right? But no, all kidding aside, I think that we would have been in a very precarious spot for the next 4 years in more ways than one. So I'm really happy to see this. But you've got all these people that consider themselves journalists that are out there spouting a bunch of lies. And if it weren't actually for Elon Musk having come in and bought Twitter, I don't think we would have had enough of that truth getting out. So it's important what he did. And I'll tell you, if he could go ahead and buy the Spinco, like he says, Donald Trump Jr. saying, hey, I got a funny idea, Elon Musk, and he wants to know how much it is. If he could go ahead and buy this thing, that would be pretty darn incredible. That would be amazing. Tucker Carlson might be back on MSNBC. Didn't he used to have a show there at some point? I mean, incredible. But, a lot of people would be fired. right out of the gate. One in particular I can think about, Joy Reid. Joy Reid would definitely be fired. I mean, I think there are others that are shrewd, like Mika and Joe, that, already are on thin ice right now, but it's like they know it, they sense it, they feel it, they smell it. And that's why Joe Scarborough, the very next day, right after we did get a landslide in the election, he came in with a smile on his face, suit and tie on, trying to channel like Tucker 2.0 with the little tie and the, my gosh, here he is saying it was a massive red wave.
Well, so much to go through, so many questions. I came onto the set and Willie said, hey, by the way, because we were talking about the historic nature of this sweep.
Yeah.
And Willie said, do you know, he only lost Illinois by 4 points.
4 points in
New Jersey by 5. You talk about we had talked about a red wave 2 years ago that never materialized. This is I've got to say, this is the biggest red wave I've seen since Ronald Reagan's 49 state victory in 1984.
Smart.
It seems every
you look at New Jersey, you look at New York, you look at California. He's in striking distance of winning the whole freaking thing come 2028. And so a lot of people are freaking out, certainly within the Democrat Party, but some people just don't really get it, right? So I think Joe and Mika, they're opportunists, let's face it, who want to make sure that they stay close to power, right? That show is all about being a power broker, and those in the know watch it, et cetera, et cetera. So how do they stay relevant for the next 4 years? They're trying to cozy up to one, whoever might now be in charge. They have some of the same management staying on, but you're going to have a different power structure given the different ownership structure. And two, they want to actually feel as though they matter. And then you got somebody who ought to be fired today, who clearly is reckless. They're reckless too, but they're trying to be buttoned up now that they realize Trump won the thing. This woman, she just doesn't care.
Hey, I just want to give some free advice to the white progressives, particularly white progressive women who may be thinking about marching against the Trump victory, maybe putting back on the P-word hats and doing that thing. I would just say probably don't send any of those invites to any black women you know. I'm just going to tell you right now, they're not coming. I'm pretty sure black women have resigned from the Save America Coalition, Save Democracy Coalition, and definitely the Save the Democratic Party Coalition. I think that's probably not happening. I would just keep those invites maybe among your own friends, because I don't think they're coming. But yeah, I think black women are now on the Save Black Women, Prioritize Black Men, and prioritize black communities, black businesses, and that. And the black spaces, but Save America, Save the Democratic Party. Yeah, I don't think that's happening.
Okay, so first she's telling you, don't have Thanksgiving dinner with anybody who voted for Trump. And now she's saying, black women, stay away from white women. White women, don't even invite us to your anti-Trump parties because you didn't do enough. You didn't actually get her elected, her being Kamala Harris. These people are really wacky. So if I'm coming in as management, what is the first thing I do? I get rid of Joy because I don't need the headache. I don't need the drama. She doesn't have very good ratings, and it's clearly a problem. I got Rachel to take the $5 million pay cut. Whoop-de-doo, right? Apparently she's like ratings gold for them. I think she has a show like once a week on Monday night, and that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the week, and they can kind of ride that one all the way to the bank. But I just have a feeling if Elon gets in there, it's a whole new game. Wouldn't that be amazing? I think it's fun to think about, and I think he could do it. I really do. I said he was going to buy Twitter. I said he was going to pay the full, $42 billion for Twitter. I said he wasn't going to get out of that deal. I said they were going to spin this thing off. I said Trump was going to win. And I'm telling you, there is huge opportunity. I said, take a look at something like Bitcoin. We wrote about it on the 76 report. Not with all your money, for goodness sakes, but just, if you have any spare dollars around, you could go into one of the funds because you can buy a fractional part of Bitcoin, because I said, you know what, if he gets elected, you might as well have that opportunity because it will go up. And Donald Trump got elected, and sure enough, we were at 65,000, I think, when we came out on that note. And what are we at? I mean, we're up around 99,000 earlier this morning. So there are going to be opportunities. I want to encourage you to take advantage of them. Go over to investinmaga.com. It's our free guide from 76 Research. Rob and I put a lot of work into this, so there's a lot of good ideas for you there at investinmaga.com or 76research.com. He's going to be joining a little bit later in the show. We have a terrific piece that just came out today, actually, on what's going on overseas and what that means, not just, for the markets and for gold prices, but what it means really for our future. I'll tell you, Donald Trump couldn't come in soon enough. He really couldn't. Another quick shout out to the store, Live Free or Die. Mugs here, drink your coffee every morning out of a Trish Regan show mug or Live Free or Die. We also have hats, all that kind of stuff for Christmas, all the merch, as we say, or the swag, right? All the swag. But I'm telling you this, guys, heads are going to roll at MSNBC. Joe and Mika may be able to make it just because they seem to understand which way the wind blows. But the Joy Reids of the world, the Jen Psaki's of the world that are doubling down on this transgender stuff right about now, you know what? They're going to go. They're going to go, and they're going to go fast, and that's a good thing for America. I'll tell you another reason why Comcast is so smart to ditch MSNBC. Did you see this headline? How about this? Okay, Laken Riley's killer never stood a chance. Well, a lot of people are pretty upset about this headline that aired on MSNBC, understandably so, because it seemed to be taking the side of the killer. Right? Because in this crazy upside down DEI world, it's somehow always the victim's fault. Because actually the problem person, which in this case was the illegal migrant who did a really horrible, heinous thing, and people are upset that they don't have the death penalty invoked for him, somehow he's to be forgiven? I mean, it's wild to think that, but that's the state at which we have somehow managed to reach America. Don Jr. making a tweet about this one. Oh, we're quoting him a lot here today. Don Jr. is making a lot of tweets lately. Anyway, he says, you literally can't make up this level of depravity. These people are sick. This guy's a murderer. He's an illegal alien that killed an innocent young woman, but MSNBC would rather go to bat for him? However much you hate MSNBC, it's not enough. Because they are not on our side, the side of everyday Americans, seemingly. I guess there's some kind of self-loathing there. I try and figure this out all the time. Like, what is the end game? Like, what do you guys really want? You want communism? You want your team, I guess, to just all be in charge? You want everybody to roll over and play dead? You want women to give up their rights in women's sports? You want to basically give handouts, literally handouts. Kamala Harris wanted to give handouts to black men, $50,000 of forgivable loans, which means $50,000 each. You're talking about reparations. I mean, what is this? How are you going to have a country that functions like this? This is this guy, incidentally. You see, Don Jr.'s upset about the headline MSNBC ran about the killer of Laken Riley. And look at this. We're dealing with massive problems on the border every single day. You got New York City struggling because they can't deal with the expense of the food and the housing, the hotels that they have to put these people in. And what do you know? Alvin Bragg, we have breaking news on that, by the way. Alvin Bragg, who's the DA in New York City, well, his assistant was accosted recently by this guy whom they tracked down.
Smiling, Brandon Somoza being led out of the Midtown South precinct on West 35th Street this morning. Police say at about 2 a.m. Sunday, he robbed a 38-year-old woman in the hallway of her Hell's Kitchen apartment building. He allegedly grabbed her purse, cell phone, and bank cards and also performed a lewd act. The victim is a Manhattan assistant DA. She was not injured. Police traced her stolen cell phone to a hotel on West 45th Street, which led them to believe the suspect is a migrant, and they were able to track him down. Somoza was arrested just last night. Police say he was using drugs on the street and had stolen items with him. Police believe he is part of Tren de Aragua. That's the Venezuelan gang that has preyed on people in Times Square and Central Park. Somoza is facing a number of counts, including sexually motivated robbery and burglary. He also has 6 prior arrests, all from this year on similar crimes. And he's believed to have arrived in the U.S. in February of 2023. In Lower Manhattan, Lauren Glassberg, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
And yet somehow MSNBC wants you to think we should feel sorry for everyone. These people like Joy Reid and other lefties want you to think it's your fault that these things happen. They actually spouted this nonsense of defund the police. I mean, for goodness sakes, you look at the wreck that New York City has become. You look at what happened, that tragic situation with Lake and Riley. And I'm sorry, guys. You wonder why you lost? It's not that hard. People want to be safe. They want to have an opportunity for some prosperity. You failed on both accounts massively. And Americans aren't going to forgive that. So yeah, you know what? They're going to take the guy who's the convicted felon over your puppet candidate that you stuffed in last minute, Kamala Harris, that spent $1.5 billion and still couldn't win. Well, convicted felon no more. Some breaking news on that front.
Fox News alert now and some developments in the hush money case of Donald Trump in a New York City courtroom. The New York judge Juan Merchan has granted Trump permission to file a motion to dismiss that case. He's already said that he was going to delay sentencing for a little while. He says now that he is going to delay sentencing even further. How long this goes on is anybody's guess at this point. Obviously, the judge is going to consider this motion to dismiss. Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan DA, agreed that Trump's attorneys should have an opportunity to file a motion to dismiss, to be considered by Judge Merchan. But here's the thing, is that Bragg and his office are willing, if Judge Merchan does not grant the motion to dismiss, Bragg and his office are willing to wait.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the Fox guy there, because you know what, he will. If he doesn't, we get a whole other scenario right on our hands. But I actually think he's going to do the right. I hope he does the right thing here. He's indicated that they should file that motion to dismiss. Now, one would think that he would grant that, right? I mean, he's no longer, at least anyway, a convicted felon once that has been dismissed.
Something that I'm still struggling with, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on, is how did a convicted felon resonate more with Americans than a hyper-qualified woman of color? Do you think that racism and misogyny played any part in this election?
Well, you know, listen, I think that Vice President Harris was eminently qualified.
Mm-hmm.
And I supported her with everything that I had, and I think so many Americans did. It was a close election at the end of the day.
No.
Didn't break in her direction. I think we all are going to unpack as part of our after-action analysis. How did this happen?
Yeah.
Where did we fall short? I do think that the emerging lesson, separate and apart from reasons may be connected to race and misogyny, is that the economy was the dominant theme for a lot of folks, particularly when you consider that in many communities of color, there was movement away from the Democratic candidate and toward the former president. But I think we have to unpack it all. And it's understandable that there's great disappointment amongst a lot of people. You know, she represented tremendous hope for a new day in the United States of America. But Shirley Chisholm took a step forward. Hillary Clinton took a step forward. Now Kamala Harris has taken a step forward.
Geraldine Ferraro.
Geraldine Ferraro. Shout out to Queens, New York. And Geraldine Ferraro took an incredible step forward. That was all part of the path to where we will eventually get to in the United States of America.
Yeah. Okay. So this Sonny wants to keep saying, and Whoopi as well, but she's been muzzled somehow, that it's all about race. It's all about gender. And it's like, guys, have you not seen what's going on? Have you not seen the insane inflation that Americans are confronting? I mean, they're just oblivious to reality. This is what people are facing, a 57% increase in car insurance. Guess what? They're not making 57% more. So sure, okay, Rachel, maybe you're feeling it, Rachel Maddow, because instead of making $30 million, you're now making 25. Oh, gosh, that hurts, right? Well, she's not feeling it. And Sunny Houston is not feeling it. And eggs up 70%. Listen, everyday Americans are feeling that. And ultimately, between that and the circus that we had going on in the border, plus you factor in the instability in the world with Ukraine firing American-made missiles into Russia and Russia firing back. I mean, that's where we are right now. Thanks to some really shoddy work by the Biden-Harris administration. So there's no way that people were going to double down on that again. There's just no way. And they're delusional the way they ran that campaign. All they did was spend money. And I think they spent a lot of money on a lot of media members. Reports that Al Sharpton got $500,000 just days before he did an interview with Kamala Harris. Of course, you heard about the Megan Thee Stallion and the Eminem and what's that woman's name? Lizzo, who wants to make us into Detroit, getting millions of dollars to show up for Kamala. I mean, people saw through it, okay? They saw through it. And isn't that great? They sat there and they told us he's a convicted felon. Why? Because they went after him every which way to Sunday with every ridiculous lawsuit you could imagine. They kept going back and going back and going back. And believe me, they want to go back some more. Letitia James, she's about to get her case thrown out. Court of Appeals, it's over. I mean, it was over before it began. If you look at some of the courtroom stuff. And yet, here's this woman insisting that somehow she's going to power on with what?
I will not fear Donald Trump. I have steel in my backbone. And the reality is I will not allow this person, Donald Trump, who unfortunately is a broken man, to get in the way of progress and to separate.
Progress. He's going to separate us. You know what? You guys have done everything you possibly could to separate us. And in case you have any doubt, the woman who is about to get fired, I mean, if she's under contract, good. But, you know, if I were them, I'd tear up that contract today. I would absolutely tear up that contract today. I'm talking about Joy Reid because of her comments. She's actually, really frankly, pretty dangerous in my estimation, the way she's talking about, okay, well, no, you don't want to have anything to do with white women now. If you're a black woman, just these white women like somehow go away. I mean, this is really wacky stuff and dangerous type stuff. And this is what they're about, okay? This is what they're about. I want to play it for you again because you got to understand how crazy this woman really and truly is, if I can find it here, because this is just, I couldn't believe this. I'm like, how is she still employed? This is so irresponsible. Why would you allow this on the air? I just can't believe it.
People are rightfully alarmed. They have a reason to be alarmed. And if you would vote for that, people may not feel so confident that they're safe with you. This is not crazy. This is legitimate feelings of fear of you and a feeling that you might not be someone they could trust. If this thing goes way south, autocracies go south real fast and things get ugly and people get asked to do things and turn people in and point people out and turn on them. And if you're voting affirmatively, gleefully for this, and people might, may not feel so confident in you anymore. That's real, and you kind of have to live with it. So if you think that you can vote for what people see as their destruction and then demand that they still are cool with you and kiki with you and have Thanksgiving with you, I think you're kind of missing the point of what people are upset about. They're afraid. And autocracy and fascism are things that are legitimate to be afraid of. So you may want to step back.
Oh, wow. And then, of course, she doubled down and said, if you're a white woman, don't be inviting us to any of your anti-Trump rallies, because I guess she sees that they somehow failed her and she's going to double down on this division. So, yeah, I would fire her, you know what, ASAP, really, really, really fast. So there are these people out there that are going to just perpetuate this narrative. But what kind of narrative is it, really? I mean, nobody believed it, obviously. And now KJP, who was asked about this less than 24 hours ago, basically admitted as much. he's not an existential threat. I mean, that's why everything's carrying on just like normal.
It's been, more than 2 weeks since the election. This was an election that elected a man that President Biden has repeatedly referred to as an existential threat. So why is it that the American people have not heard President Biden talk about this threat since the election?
Because there was an election and the American people spoke. The will of the American people were very clear. Right? And so the president is now in a situation where we have to deal with a peaceful transfer of power. We have to respect the will of the American people. And that's what you have been seeing from this president, trying to lead by example to make sure that that happens. And that's what the American people deserve. That's what the president deserves. And that's what I think he was very clear about in Rose Garden when he delivered his remarks 2 days after the election. And he said, he was very honest. He said, these, and again, I'm not quoting him exactly, but these were not the results that we had wanted. Right? And that's just being honest. They weren't.
But we're not going to talk about the existential threat anymore. What do you know? Amazing how that just kind of all went away. It all went away except in some corners of the universe over on MSNBC, which, you know what? I believe in free speech. She absolutely has the right to say that stuff. I don't really think it should be part of mainstream America. However, mainstream legacy media television, you don't need that. Or maybe the answer is everybody just keeps on coming over here and keeps coming over here because we actually tell the truth. And imagine, I'm blown away by what they did, for example, on the laptop. I'm blown away with the Russia. I'm blown away by that virus couldn't possibly have come from the lab in Wuhan, China. Guys, do you think we're stupid? I think they think we are positively stupid. And because the media has always done their bidding and just narrated whatever the White House and the CIA and the FBI and every other agency there, State Department, etc., wanted them to say, because they parroted that, there was no alternative. And Elon Musk, rightly so, he recognized the importance of making sure that we had an alternative. And that alternative became Twitter, which is a really important vehicle, right, to be able to have right now. What do you know? Advertisers are actually returning. Amazing, right? Amazing. Let me see if I have some more of Elon talking about the importance of free speech, because this is real right now. We need this. And I think that it would be pretty darn incredible, frankly, if he pulled that off. If he actually were to get, it's a kind of a dying industry, so he'd have to rethink it. But if anyone could rethink it, I think it would be Elon Musk right about now. Some breaking news from Matt Gaetz. He has just sat down for his first interview since bowing out of the cabinet position for Attorney General. Pam Bondi's coming in. Pam Bondi, who's the Attorney General for the state of Florida. Here she is just a few nights before the election.
Well, I was a prosecutor. I was a homicide prosecutor for 18 years. I was Florida's first female Attorney General. And I was special advisor to Donald Trump, Office of White House Counsel, but most importantly, I'm his friend. And I was in that White House, and we all know he surrounded himself with a lot of brilliant women. How many women here tonight support Donald Trump? And backstage, look at these beautiful women sitting behind me. Sorry, guys, in the front row. Donald Trump, that was the greatest gift Mark Cuban could give Donald Trump, I think, by saying something so ignorant and stupid. So I have a message for Mark Cuban from all of us here tonight. Underestimate us. This is going to be fun.
Pam Bondi, of course, responding to those horrible statements from Mark Cuban, Shark Tank, Mark Cuban. He actually said that there are no intelligent women around Donald Trump. Obviously, Pam Bondi, who has been by his side for a long time, offering legal advice, etc., she was pretty offended, as you can see by that, as were many women. Kellyanne Conway, for example. Think about his chief of staff now, who managed his campaign, Susie Wiles. She's a grandmother. She likes to bake, and wow, she's a total badass because this woman is running the campaign. You never see her, right? But she's pulling all the strings. He's got some really smart women around. Linda McMahon, WWE, self-made billionaire who created that amazing franchise. She's now going to be head of the Department of Education. I mean, there's a lot of women that are coming into really powerful positions. Think about Christie, right? Coming in it for Homeland Security, and Pam there as AG. It's pretty compelling. It's very amazing. And so, the whole idea that he's somehow sexist, that doesn't really fly. I think he's a big believer in meritocracy. And if you can do the job, then gosh darn it, you deserve the job. He doesn't care if you're male or female, black or white or purple for that matter. Anyway, Matt Gaetz, having run into a lot, I have some thoughts on that. I almost kind of wonder if some of this was even deliberate. But let's just listen to him. He just sat down moments ago with Charlie Kirk, and he had a few things to say about how this all unfolded.
So Matt, I now have to ask about just what your plans are, and it's okay if you have to, punt on it because you might not know. It's important to know you resigned from this Congress, not the next Congress. Our audience is 100% behind Matt Gaetz, by the way. They are very, very upset that you were not able to get all the way to Attorney General. I have to ask, what is next for Matt Gaetz?
Yeah, I'm still going to be in the fight, but it's going to be from a new perch. I do not intend to join the 119th Congress. There are a number of fantastic Floridians who've stepped up to run for my seat, people who have inspired with their heroism, with their public service. And I'm actually excited to see Northwest Florida go to new heights and have great representation. Charlie, I've been in an elected office for 14 years. I first got elected to the state house when I was 26 years old, and I'm 42 now. And I've got some other goals in life that I'm eager to pursue with my wife and my family. And so I'm going to be fighting for President Trump. I'm going to be doing whatever he asks of me, as I always have. But I think that 8 years is probably enough time in the United States Congress. In Florida, our voters got to vote on term limits for state government. And
so he's
the campaign
saying he's
was
done, basically. I mean, that's the headline that came out of that interview, which is really interesting if you think about all this. Like, they had to have known, Donald Trump had to have known that this would be a really tall order, right? Like, this would be really, really hard to get through because Matt Gaetz, love him, hate him, whatever you think of Matt Gaetz, let me just tell you, he's made some enemies along the way. And he has some personal behavior that, he denies this, et cetera. But there's some things that have come out that are not very beneficial to Matt Gaetz or, to the reputation of the United States of America if he were to be the AG. All right, let me just say that. But I think that Donald Trump knew that. And I think he always really liked Pam. I was kind of surprised Pam didn't get it to begin with. And I'm like, okay, was this the move all along? Like, maybe you actually helped Matt in some weird way save face because they were going to come out with that report on him any which way you sliced it. So he got this elevation, but it was bound to be problematic. It was bound to create this kind of circus environment. So do you do that deliberately? Do you do that deliberately so that, maybe you figure out who your enemies are in the Senate? You know exactly who's going to vote against you. And there's 5 of them that weren't going to go along with any of this. There's this guy on TikTok who it was cute. He basically, he's on to my theory here about maybe it being some kind of bait and switch. Like, we put one out there, we entertained the troops for a little while, but really all along we had every intention of putting Pam Bondi in the slot. Listen to him.
Trump done hit y'all with that bait and switch, baby. Baby, he done picked Pam Bondi as Attorney General. But Trump don't like women, right? Boy, I knew it was a bait and switch. I knew it was. See, what he wanted to do is find out who was going to daggone vote for his picks. He wanted to see his Senate loyalty. So what y'all gonna do, deny a woman now? Y'all know y'all love identity politics. Baby, Pam Bondi about to be, would that be the first woman Attorney General? Wow, this is crazy. And he did it so quick. He just changed the news cycle just like that. Baby, she's qualified. Won't she the Attorney General in Florida? Baby, he's bringing his whole Florida crew out here, boy. Baby, they coming for that ass. Let's go, Trump. Let's do this. Let's do this. Baby,
Anyway, so, you know, if there was a method to the madness, it was like, let me just throw this out there and see what happens. And we'll know exactly who's with me, who's against me, and we'll go from there, right? I mean, there tends to be, ultimately, I would say with him, some, you know, I wouldn't say that he's like sitting there calculating it all out in his head ahead of time, but he's got incredibly good instincts. And it's entirely possible that he's like, all right, you know, Matt's going to go anyway. Let's go out with a bang and let's just see what happens. And, well, a lot happened. By the way, he makes everybody else look terrific, right? Like you put Matt Gaetz out there and all of a sudden the other appointments, you know, they feel like they're easy peasy. Well, maybe not Pete Hegseth. Pete's got a whole other thing going on, and that police report came out. He's denying it, but there's a lot there that I think is going to actually stand in the way of him actually getting the position there as Secretary of Defense. Look, anything could happen. We'll see. Quick shout out for one of our sponsors here on the show, Balance in Nature. Balance in Nature. I take my fruits and veggies every single day. I encourage you to do the same. 1-800-246-8751. 1-800-246-8751. Fruits and veggies. Just use code word Trish because you get 50% off right now, which is actually the best deal I think I've ever seen for balanceinnature.com. You also get free shipping. So take advantage of it. Take advantage. I take my fruits and veggies every day. They've got lots of different stuff for you, but I'm somebody who needs that multivitamin, and I need to make sure I get my vitamin D level up, especially like at a time of year like this. So I encourage you to go over to balanceofnature.com and take a peek. So the views days, if you ask me, seem to be pretty numbered. I mean, I think that some of those shows on MSNBC are clearly numbered, but The View is going through a special sort of pain onto its own. And you can see it playing out, if you would, on live TV. For some of you who joined the show yesterday, you may have caught this clip. It's just 10 seconds, but it's pretty epic.
You got to go to private school. Because nobody can figure out what's being said here right now.
So Whoopi's getting a little frustrated. You know, she's been going through a lot. Look who won the election. She's got to deal with the guy whose name she doesn't like to say. And when she does say his name, she literally spits. So, yeah, you know, they got in a little bit of a tussle, you see, over the new head of the Department of Education because they don't think she's qualified. I mean, forget the fact that the woman built a business from scratch. I mean, Linda McMahon, the real deal. She used to run the Small Business Association. Here she is.
But, Mom, just remember, like you told me when I was a little girl, this is gonna hurt me a lot worse than it hurts you.
Get her! Stop it, just tell their husband to get her back! Stop that! Stop that! Oh my God! Look at him! Save me!
You're simply...
I love those clips. So Linda McMahon started the WWF or the WWE. That's actually her daughter because her daughter became a performer there too. And she ran the business and she went on to run Small Business Association in the Trump administration. And now she's going to run the Department of Education. And that's not sitting well with the ladies on The View.
That they fund students who are already attending private schools. So people with money get those vouchers, use the vouchers to pay less for their private schools, and their kids go on to do well. Where do you get the money from vouchers? You pull those money from those poor schools, those poor schools.
I don't see it.
Let me just finish this. So wealthy families are overwhelmingly the recipients of school voucher tax credits. I'm not making this up. This has been studied. In 2020, a 2020 study found that only about half of states with voucher programs require teachers to have a bachelor's degree, require teachers to have training, require teachers to have licensing, require participating private schools.
If I may get in, just to make it a conversation.
But because I have children and because I looked at
I went to public school. I believe you got to go to private school.
There is zero statistical significance.
You got to go to private school.
Because nobody can figure out what's being said here right now. No, there is no last thing right now. We're going to go to break, and then we're going to come back.
Yes.
Because you can't. What's happening is no one can hear anything anyone is saying. So everybody has to
on it so we can talk.
Well,
that
you know,
goes for you too. My dear.
That's
for a word, and she's been talking for 3 minutes.
You took the first two.
Wow. So again, like tension is high. And I think they're really worried about losing their jobs because I think Disney's going to get rid of this thing. They're looking over there at Comcast saying, oh, you guys actually have a clue. I mean, that was one day. Here's another day this week, another cat fight, another one, believe it or not. I mean, they just can't seem to function there over at The View.
Well, if he's right, then why didn't people vote for the former prosecutor who actually had policy plans to help the working class? I mean, again, I got my popcorn. I don't know why people did what they did. I see all these reasons, and so, okay, time will tell. But what do y'all think?
I just, I know that as a country, it's very difficult for people to believe that racism and misogyny, they're just alive and well. I think that we don't want to think that about ourselves, our neighbors, our friends. But it's my lived experience tells me that it does still exist, even if your lived experience doesn't tell you that it exists. And, the facts support that. I think we have a graph. If you look at there's a clear racial divide in who voted for Trump as opposed to who voted for Kamala Harris. It's very clear. It's not only clear by race, but it's also clear by education. And so the notion somehow that is not true. This is by education. Those who attended college voted for her at a higher degree than those that didn't.
But I think
I've
you're
said that.
his point.
Let me just finish. And so I've said that before, and there was so much backlash because I think it's an uncomfortable, inconvenient truth about this country.
But his whole point is they didn't vote for him because of racism and misogyny. They voted for him because they felt like, I think the biggest common denominator in this election is people want a good life and ability to provide for their family.
Well,
whether we agree or not with Donald Trump's plans,
Black people
they thought that he was reflective.
One of the poorest demographics in this country, but they voted for Kamala Harris.
But there was a split, and more of them voted for Donald Trump than had historically. I think that there's such a desire. If you really think the vast majority of this country voted because of racism and misogyny, you're missing it. Most of my family, a lot of my family doesn't have college degrees.
But the stats are the stats.
But that's not, it doesn't say I'm white, I voted for Donald Trump because of racism. That's not, let me just ask, what stat are you talking about?
Let me just dissect the two.
Yes, you can. There's a lot
Hold on. Calm down. Everybody just take a breath. Take a breath.
Well,
take a beat.
Well, let me jump in here because I think, Sonny, what you say is valid. And I think absolutely that is part of the problem. But when we hang our hat on that's the only problem or
no
the
one's saying it's the only.
I'm not saying you are, but I'm saying the backlash is that when people hang their hat on that being the only reason, any criticism of Vice President Harris must be because she's a woman or she's black. I voted for Hillary Clinton, not because she was a woman, she was the most qualified. I voted for Vice President Kamala Harris because more of my values fell in line with what she stood for. So all of that can be true. There is something here to the socioeconomic class, though, that is crossing racial divide in academic and education, too. Americans with a college degree 30 years ago were roughly 20% of the population and held the same percentage of household wealth as those without a degree. Yeah. 30 years later, this is important, Americans with a college degree account for 38% of the population and 73% of the household wealth. The haves and the have-nots have gone so far apart that they are rising up right now, and they cross every line of our democracy.
Okay, can I...
Yeah, it's wild, right? It's really, really wild. I'm just looking at some of your comments here in real time, and there's this sense that, they think they're somehow better than us. And it's true, because when I played a different clip yesterday, they're talking about how basically it's just the poor, uneducated folks. I mean, Bill Clinton was saying this too in a new interview with MSNBC, that it's just the poor, uneducated people that somehow are buying whatever Trump's selling. And I'm like, actually, I mean, Elon Musk is pretty smart, just saying, and he's certainly not poor. He's the richest man in the world, and he's certainly not uneducated. Okay? Like, you guys need to get over yourselves. The uppity snobbery, the arrogance that is on full display on ABC, on all the main networks, and MSNBC. So yeah, I love that Elon Musk is tweeting about, why not go and buy ABC as well? I mean, Elon, while you're at it, right? Maybe you can roll them all up. You get the broadcast network that way, and then you get the cable networks that way. I'm just thinking, unless it's an antitrust thing, that might actually kind of work. This show, though, is so completely out of touch with reality. I don't know how they have any viewers. I'm pretty sure that Fox on cable beats them in the middle of I know they did when I was there. I would do that outnumbered show and we'd always beat them. But they don't understand that they're not relevant anymore. They're like the team over at MSNBC. They're all looking at themselves saying, why does anything else or anyone else matter?
This seems like an easy choice to us here.
What is wrong with these people? Exactly. Yeah. I mean, look, if I knew the answer, I would implement it immediately, right? And reverse this. But we have to compete. I mean, the answer is we don't know how to compete with these social media basket-making influencers or whatever, but we have to, and so we've got to figure out ways to do it, and maybe we make our own 20-second snippets, and we meet viewers where they are. We meet news consumers where they are, because
so this is Morning Joe, MSNBC, trying to figure out why it is that they don't have more influence. They can't seem to understand this. And by the way, the same conversation is going on The View. The View leaders are trying to figure out, why aren't we relevant anymore? Why don't we matter? We used to be it, right? We were everything. And somehow we're not. Who's this guy, Joe Rogan? What are these podcasts? What are these influencers? What is this Twitter thing taking over? X these days. Here's Joy Behar lamenting it all, trying desperately to make herself sound relevant by working Joe Rogan into the equation. Watch.
That's why people like our show, because they know that we are checked by ABC News. But
we're checked by everybody.
Yeah, I mean, if we're wrong, we have the legal note here.
Human legal.
But we went from Walter Cronkite. Basically, to this guy Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. I checked it. He believes in dragons. He believes in dragons.
Did you triple source that?
Yes, I did. And he also thinks that dragons, like dinosaur-y type of animals, roamed the earth when people did. So this is the type of really, really bad information that's going out there.
Well, in defense, there are some really good news.
It's possible that Donald Trump did roam the earth when dinosaurs were here.
There are.
Okay, so she doesn't know who Joe Rogan is. She's like, oh, he believes in dinosaurs, whatever. I love this. So Joe Rogan had the most epic response ever to Joy Reid. He doubled down on the whole thing. He wrote on his Twitter, dragon believer. So this is an article from Daily Mail. While he admitted that fire-breathing dragons probably never existed, Rogan added that there probably was a really dangerous reptile that they called dragons. The question is whether they actually flew. So apparently on his show, he was talking about how throughout history, in mythology, etc., you see these dragon-like figures. And he's trying to figure out why they always existed. If you're going back thousands and thousands of years, people, they didn't just imagine these, right? Maybe they had actually seen something similar. And she's flipping out about that. Joy Behar is trying to discredit him because he's actually making an interesting observation. How would you know that these things existed that long ago, given that you didn't have the scientific wherewithal to, be doing fossil searches and that kind of thing. So it's an interesting point he made, probably part of a much larger discussion. And she's going to extract that and somehow say that, no, she's the one who's right because they have ABC News. ABC News is the be all end all. I'm sorry, it's not. It's certainly not, right? We've lost that. They are not relevant anymore. They're not relevant on MSNBC. They're not relevant at NBC, CBS, ABC, any of these places. It's why they are all being spun off or sold. Obviously, the headline's already out there with NBC spinning off all of its cable assets except for Bravo. And then you get Bob Iger, CEO of Disney, therefore in charge of ABC News and The View, telling David Faber over at CNBC at Sun Valley 2 years ago, he was going to do the same exact thing.
And well, you're going through all the things that we want to talk about in the time that we have here. But I mean, just to sort of wrap up why you're staying. I mean, you said in a memo to employees, you've made important and sometimes difficult decisions. You're proud of what you've accomplished, but there's more to accomplish before this transformative work is complete. So what's transformative here, and what is the work that is going to take another perhaps 2 years or even more, even after you do leave, that needs to get done?
Well, the transformative work, of course, is making sure that our cost structure reflects the economic realities of the business, and that includes disruption. Transformative work is dealing with businesses that are no-growth businesses and what to do about them, and particularly the linear business, which we are expansive in our thinking about, and we're going to look expansively about opportunities there, because clearly it's a business that is going to continue to struggle.
Well, let's stop there for a second then and let me ask you about it. We're talking, I guess, ABC, the network, the stations, but then the cable networks as well.
Yes, correct.
FX, Nat Geo. Is it possible you would look to sell them?
We're going to be expansive, and I think if you can interpret what that word means. We're just getting at that work, but we have to be open-minded and objective about the future of those businesses. Yes.
Yeah.
Meaning that they're not core to Disney?
They're not core, and I'm just going to put up this comment by piece of my mind. In other words, they're no-growth businesses. And he's right. There's no growth in those businesses. So, yeah, if Elon were to come in, and according to his tweet today, he might be interested. If he were to come into something like an MSNBC, CNBC, Oxygen, Sci-Fi, etc., USA, and Golf Channel, he's going to figure out how to innovate there and make those interesting and new, because really they're just sort of dying on the vine. And the thought is that Comcast will trade at a higher multiple once you get rid of those drags on the revenue cycle, and we'll be better off because of it. And so all of these companies and all of these individuals that are mainstream media types, they just are having a really hard time coming to grips with this. And so their answer is, by default, that somehow Republicans are stupid, Trump people are stupid, those podcasts, Trish Regan is stupid, that somehow the other side is wrong. And you know what? We're not, actually. I tend to be right on most of this stuff. In fact, I think I got a pretty darn good track record of being right on all of this stuff. But you keep telling yourself that. MSNBC, Joe, Mika, Joy, The View, and Bill Clinton.
Politics is the only business in which you can prove your authenticity by not knowing anything. And I think that's a problem. And we'll pay for it unless we get over it. But that's a problem for the Democrats, too. We have to learn to talk to people in ways that they can relate to, that explains that. That's why, when I did my best to help this time, I didn't want to go to any big rallies and big television things. I just wanted to get in the country. Just go out and talk to people. Because I think that we're behind in the sense that a lot of the small town and rural people are now highly sophisticated in how they get their information. And there are zillions of new websites now, all trying to advance their sort of conservative to right-wing radical cause. And a lot of times we're not playing on the same field, and we're not even being heard. So I just said...
So, what's your answer? I mean, look, you had a lock on the mainstream media, and you were able to convince all those people in rural America that your way was the right way, because they used to sit down every night and watch the CBS Evening News at 6:30. That was pretty contrived stuff. Look, I used to work for it. I did. And I remember getting, they give you a minute 10, a minute 20, a minute 30. If you got a minute 30, ooh, you're golden. If you could ever get a minute 50, well, that was a sweet spot to be in. And you got a 10-second intro sometimes and a 10-second tag, and everything was scripted in between. And the problem with that medium is by the time you're delivering the news at 6:30 in that very tightly scripted fashion, guess what? The news cycle has already moved on. And in fact, the stuff that you thought maybe was true in the morning turns out it's not even true by 6:30 p.m. And so over here, we're not as weighed down by having to edit and put the graphics in and the music and this, that, and the other and type everything into the prompter. Nope, there's no prompter here. I'm just talking to you. And so it's an entirely different kind of space. And I can be relating information to you in real time with real opinion and real analysis that's not contrived or somehow managed by one of the three-letter agencies. I mean, funny they were called NBC, CBS, and ABC. When you think about it, right? Doing the bidding that the government wanted them to do. I mean, it's sort of messed up. It's part of why I started 76 Research. It's a big part of it because it's similar, not just in news, but also in finance, right? There's certain like sort of rules around what's done. I mean, Rob could tell you this. In fact, he's going to join us shortly, but he would tell you, like, you can only invest in certain companies because of DEI principles or ESG principles or this, that, and the other. And the reality is, as an investor, you just need to be investing in whatever works, right? Forget the DEI stuff because, let's be honest, it doesn't work. That was like one of the most messed up things ever. Speaking of the devil, we got him here joining us right now. Rob, I want to welcome you to the show because we're looking at all the news that's crossing right now of Elon Musk and the potential of Elon Musk to possibly buy MSNBC. Don Jr. tweeting this out earlier today, and Elon responded with how much, which is a similar echo, right, to what he did when he bought the $44 billion social media company X, formerly known as Twitter. I mean, this is kind of started in the same way. Is that fair to say? By the way, everybody, this is my co-founder at 76 Research, Mr. Rob Horton, brilliant investor, out with a new piece. The two of us co-authored a piece today that I encourage you to get at 76research.com about the international situation, Ukraine, et cetera. We'll get to that. But Rob, first, just starting with the potential there for Elon Musk to come in. What do you think?
Yeah, no, as I was waiting to join you, I got a heads up on my phone that Elon's net worth just got to something like $350 billion. So maybe it's
he can afford
price
it.
tag doesn't really matter too much. It's fun to spend his money though. But similar to Twitter. I mean, I don't think he would necessarily look to buy it as a really as a financial investment.
As an asset, as a financial asset.
Yeah, but more as like a way of, doing something fun and perhaps getting some content out that he'd rather see.
That's was sort of, it seems like a big part of his motivation behind Twitter. I mean, he was sort of shocked that humor, for example, was not allowed. Our friends over at Babylon Bee who got their account taken offline. I mean, the New York Post, of course, a famous newspaper started by the likes of Alexander Hamilton. It's been around a long time. Suddenly they couldn't be on there. Heck, the president of the United States couldn't be on Twitter. And he started to say, wait a second, like this is getting a little bit weird. It's gone a little bit too far. And you wonder to a certain extent if he's having sort of a similar sort of process in his head regarding the mainstream media, the legacy media, and all these cable channels and where they've been. I mean, we've been showing clips from MSNBC and showing clips from The View throughout the hour. And it's really astonishing, if you would, just astonishing how far out on the, if we're going to talk extremism, I mean, it's wacky stuff and they keep doubling down on it.
Yeah, I was watching as you played those clips and my blood pressure was getting up too. It's good preparation though for my mother-in-law and her friends come Thanksgiving.
Well, hey, you know what? You're one big happy family, right? Which it wouldn't be if Joy Reid had anything to say about it, because she wants everybody, if you voted differently, you can't be in the same room together, which I think is just part of the problem. Elon recognizes that. It'd be interesting to see. I mean, again, I think it's important to stress, like, this would not be necessarily what you would call a wise financial move, because from a financial perspective, I mean, unless, I don't know. I mean, look, they get advertising back. What do you know? At Twitter, coming back.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's a big audience, there's a lot of reach, or a lot of potential reach, and if he changes the content around and actually kind of brings to linear television some kind of unique or differentiated content, maybe there is an opportunity to, make it a valuable franchise.
Wow. They have about, I guess, like $7 billion allegedly in revenue right now. So it's a lot. I'm like, hey, you get kind of a twofer or more than a twofer, because you get CNBC too, and USA, Oxygen E, Sci-Fi, Golf Channel. I think that the media is changing so drastically in real time. And when you look at a lot of these media companies and the valuations, I mean, they're not really trading at very high multiples. I look at Fox News, for example, which is obviously one of my former employers suffered in terms of its own stock price. It just really hasn't moved in quite some time. It's sort of what we would call dead money. And I think it's because like these media companies, they just don't really know how to transition in this environment. And you have, shows like this one, or Joe Rogan, which is just a powerhouse, right? But there's all these other, whether it's my little show or other little shows that are out there, a lot of people are commanding that audience share away from the networks right now. I can't tell you how many people on this show say, hey Trish, you know what, I cut the cord. Hey, I just cut the cord. I'm saving myself a fortune. We don't have any more cable boxes in the house, because guess what? You don't need them anymore.
No, you don't. Yeah, I cut the cord a year or two ago. And, I was looking at Fox. I was just sort of fishing around to figure out, what this SpinCo might actually be worth. Fox is actually doing relatively well versus the other traditional media companies. I think its sports division is actually, kind of generating pretty good results. But, you put it in the context of Comcast and Paramount, like they really underperformed the market. And when you think about this spinoff, Comcast's enterprise value, I think, is something like $250 billion. So it's like market cap's like $170 billion. So, this is going to be a few percentage points of, the overall value of the business. So it's really, kind of an irrelevant collection of assets from the standpoint of Comcast. And I think, they're probably just looking to get rid of like the headache or like the controversy that surrounds some of these shows.
Anchors, right? No, that makes sense. I mean, they are keeping Bravo, interestingly. They're keeping their streaming network. They're keeping their main broadcast network, which actually has done a fairly decent job of trying to stay out of the fray, right? Trying to stay, like when you watch the Today Show, it's not like it's entirely all politics in the same way that the MSNBC franchise certainly is. So I think they see that as really the path forward, and they want to save themselves the FCC trouble and just the stink, if you would, around some of these anchors and what they've been saying, which all, was proven wrong basically by America 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks and change. So walk me through this. Like if Elon said, hey, I want to buy MSNBC, I want to buy these cable assets off of NBC, off of Comcast. I mean, they're in the process of spinning this off, right? And so there's like an attractive deal that they've got on the table that would have tax implications. I guess he would have to come forward with some kind of offer that would equal whatever they would get in the market plus the tax savings.
Yeah, my understanding is they're planning this tax-free spinoff, which will take up to a year to get through all the regulatory approvals. But then like the current shareholders of Comcast would receive this newly formed company, and it would contain these specific media, and there wouldn't be any, tax consequences for them. So for Elon to come in and propose an alternative transaction, it would have to have like a superior, the board would have to determine that the overall value proposition to shareholders was meaningfully superior and the risk was potentially the same or lower, but money.
And that happened with Twitter. I mean, if you think about that one, right? Because he made this offer and it was sort of like, whoa, $44 billion. It was crazy at the time. It was a really big premium, but immediately everybody was like, no, we don't want Elon buying Twitter. And they were pretty upset about it. You had employees upset, you had a management team that was upset, board members upset. But at the end of the day, the duty is to the shareholder. And so they really couldn't walk away from that, could they?
Yeah, it was a Delaware corporation, so you have to maximize value for the shareholder. Boards have limited flexibility to, do anything other than that. So if Elon wants it, I think he has the resources to get it. The question is, how much of a premium is he willing to pay? But it's theoretically doable.
Interesting. It is theoretically doable. And there's a lot of people out there, one of our viewers, Don, is making the point that there's other conservative media players in the space that could put together a team of investors. He mentions the Daily Wire folks, very smart guys, Jeremy Boring over there, and Ben Shapiro, and they've done a good job in terms of building what they've got there at Daily Wire. And as they look to expand, they're really thinking about entertainment division, et cetera. So it's an interesting point. Whether they could get that money together, whatever it would be. Of course, Elon just kind of has it hanging around. I mean, you might have to sell some Tesla shares, though. That could be a problem.
Yeah, or someone will lend him the money. I don't know. I mean, it's unclear at this point, like just how profitable or any of those assets are. So we know the revenue figure that they're, but we don't quite know like the margins. And
I think the margins are squeezed. I think the margins are tight. I mean, I'll just tell you from my own experience in television, they pay a lot. There's like a premium that's sort of built in. We've been talking about The View, for example. I mean, you got to pay for the live studio audience for somebody to manage them and handle them and book them. And then for all the people running around with signs saying, clap now, laugh now, there's entertainment during the commercial breaks where they have to entertain this audience that's there and keep everybody corralled. So from the expense standpoint, it seems like it's pretty onerous. There's a lot of cameras. There's a lot of people. I know that in my experience, you'd have at least 40 people working on a show. And I compare and contrast it with what I do here now. And it's obviously, it doesn't have the same bells and whistles and all the cameras from different angles, et cetera. But we're actually able to accomplish a lot in terms of, if you consider the core part of my job is sharing information, explaining concepts, and having an opinion on all of the things that are coming our way, sort of with a daily drumbeat. I'm able to do that pretty effectively here. And maybe you don't need all the cost centered around that network production. And it is a production. So my hunch, Rob, would be that the margins are extremely thin, and they're worried about them, especially in some of these very liberal outlets, because the margins could grow even thinner given the political climate we're now in.
Yep. When it comes to streaming, there's advantages in terms of like in a better way and in a cheaper way, but there's also the advertising side of the equation, right? When you're doing your show or other streamers are doing their show, it opens advertisers up to digital marketing opportunities and to more pinpointed, presenting ads to a more pinpointed audience. So that's why, there's just a huge advantage to digital kind of streaming media versus old fashioned linear television, where you're just kind of blasting, like Super Bowl ads that everyone has to see, as opposed to really carving up.
And people don't watch them. Right? In network television, you flip the channel, you go back and forth. You don't have to watch them, or you can speed through because you've recorded it and you come in 10 minutes late. And I think the difference here in this particular medium that we're in right now, if you're getting ads, please watch them because they are actually targeted with you in mind. And it's actually much more effective, not to mention like the ads that I read, and I'm going to read another one before I close out the day, but they are products that I've tried and that I use. And there's a certain identity that goes with that. You don't get that, right, in network television. In fact, when I first came over here to this side of things, I was like, what do you mean I read the ad? And then I was like, well, I have to test the product. I have to try the product. I have to, because that's me. I don't know if everybody's like that, but that indeed is me. And I think that that's also part of the appeal, right? Because people are hopefully choosing to watch this show because maybe, I don't know, guys, do you like me? You like the show, you like the information. And so therefore there's a trust factor that commands, again, a certain value when it comes to the ad reads. And so I think the business overall is just so much more compelling from an advertiser trying to reach individuals directly, and they don't have that at network TV. I don't know how Elon would necessarily change that. I think he'd just kind of enjoy it. Can you imagine? I mean, Rob, think about it. Can you imagine the conversation that Joe and Mika are having this weekend?
When Elon's their new boss, yeah, that could be a problem for them. I'd look forward to Elon with the Sci-Fi Channel, see what he could do there. Maybe I want to learn more about Joe Rogan and the dragons and what happened.
Yeah, I mean, you think about SpaceX and the fun that he could have there. I mean, it would be amazing, guys. I've seen these rumors like floating out, but look, as we came to air, it is the first time, and I had to lead with this today because it is the first time that Elon has said, kind of given a wink and a nod, and maybe it's just to entertain everybody for a little bit, but I almost feel like it was somewhat staged out. Don Jr. tweeted that out, hey, you ought to buy it. And then sure enough, a few hours later, he comes back and he asked the price, which was exactly what happened with Twitter. Nobody took it seriously back then. I said, take it seriously. When he came through with the offer, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a crazy, crazy offer. But the board had to accept it, as we've discussed. And then once the deal was done, I was like, it's going to get done. It's totally, totally going to get done. And it could happen again.
Yeah, they'll be obligated to, if he shows up with a big check, they will be obligated to consider it. And if it's more than what the expected trading levels are in the market after the spin is completed, I think the lawyers will say to the board members, you got to take this deal.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. By the way, we get 6,000 likes. I should, Rob and I are going to be over on the 76 Research channel. So if you guys can join us there, what time is it now? It's 5:05. We're probably going to be there around 5:30 at 76 Research. That's our channel there. And we came out with a new piece today that we got to talk about, because give us the headline, basically. I mean, what's your thought here on what's going on internationally? In terms of, I would just say my headline is Donald Trump couldn't get there fast enough, because if we had another 4 years with this team in charge, I don't know what would happen. We'd be cruising right straight forward to World War III.
Yeah, we wrote a piece about, there's this sort of escalation in nuclear brinksmanship that, you're seeing a little bit of an impact on markets, on the gold price. And I think it's kind of, certainly it's a headline across the financial media. I don't think people are really expecting we're about to break into World War III, but it's quite frightening. Biden has authorized long-range missile strikes using this new advanced system into Ukraine. Putin went on television and said, okay, well, we actually have our own long-range missiles. And then he tested one and it's capable. It didn't have a nuclear warhead, but it's capable of carrying one. And it struck a target within Ukraine. I find it very disconcerting, at a minimum, to the fact that we've got a new president who was elected with a mandate to bring this war to an end. And here we have elements within the administration, Biden or whoever's actually the decision maker, kind of approving this very escalatory decision to, use advanced U.S. weaponry to attack within Russian territory. Very, very disappointing. So the piece that we put together was really focusing on, like, how did we get here? This is, as we wrote, it's really like the last swan song of the neocons who really kind of engineered, I think, are responsible for kind of bringing us to this point in the first place. And, as you just said, hope we're all counting the days until, what is it, January 20th?
I know. Yeah, counting the days. I mean, really, there's a lot that's going to change. And I think for the better, which is one of the reasons you and I came out with MAGA investing, investinmaga.com. Let me see if I can put that up right now, because I do want people to go and check that. Investinmaga.com. It's a free guide. It's a free guide and Rob and I spent a lot of time, there we go, thinking through how, what is it that you need to be in? What are the sectors that are most important? We actually have specific names in there of companies that we like. You can get all of our research. If you join the Founders Club, you get every last bit of it, all of the portfolios. There's 10 to 12 stocks in each one of them. Or you can sign up for the 76 report, code word $. Go to 76research.com, code word $. It's just $1 a month for the first 2 months, and it goes to $9.95. But Invest in MAGA is totally free. So go and check that out right now, investinmaga.com. go over to the channel. Rob, I'll see you there at 5:30.
Okay, sounds great.
Good stuff. All right, going back to some of the other headlines that we're looking at right now. Do you know how to hang up? I don't know how to hang up. I'll see you in a little bit. There we go. See, it's raw. It's raw and it's real, baby. Oh my gosh. All right. So as I said, investinmaga.com. Go check that out, guys. I do think that there's a lot. It's a lot changing. There's a lot shifting right now. There's a lot of opportunity, and you want to be able to take advantage of that in some way, hopefully, right? So this was sort of my way and Rob's way of trying to help loop you guys in with all the changes that are happening right now. It is, I promised you, I had to do one more spot, right? In this new media that we're in, and that would be for our friends over at Balance in Nature, balanceinnature.com. One of our sponsors here on the show. Let me see if I can get their information up for you, because they're terrific and they are a regular sponsor of this show, and we appreciate, we have so much gratitude for all they do for us. I want to encourage you to go check that out. I actually put it in the show notes there so you can see the number, you can see the link, balanceinnature.com. Use code word Trish, because then the show gets credit and I get credits, and so you're helping the show, and it's a big deal because they have 50% off, which is actually the best that I have seen from Balance of Nature thus far, plus free shipping. But this is it's amazing. You might actually see this. We'll follow this. We'll continue watching this here. I think he could get it. If he wants it, believe me, it is his. Comcast is putting the whole kit and caboodle, all those cable stations up for sale, and all Elon has to do is come through with a check. We'll see. I mean, like I said, it's not necessarily a great business, but I don't think he's in it for that reason, right? Do you? What do you think? Should Elon Musk, we can make this like a poll question, right? Should Elon Musk buy NBC's cable channels, including MSNBC, CNBC, USA, Oxygen E, Sci-Fi, and Golf Channel? They're estimated to have about $7 billion between them in revenue a year. We don't know what the margins look like, but I don't know if he necessarily cares. So what do you think? Should he buy it? You guys are like, yeah. He should totally buy it, right? We would love if he bought it. It would be a good day. I'll tell you, we're having lots of good days lately, including, wow, look at this show. This is a good show. So thank you so much for all your likes. Thank you so much for all your participation. And we are going to be back here live on Monday as well. Lots of content coming your way over the weekend. I'm going to be at 5:30 over at 76 Research on YouTube Live with Rob, talking about this big piece that we just put out today, plus a little bit more on the Elon deal. I'll see you there.